It had been raining all afternoon, the kind of persistent drizzle that paints the world gray and makes everything feel a little heavier. I was sitting at the window of the coffee shop I'd worked at for the last 6 years, watching the water slide down the glass like silent tears. My apron was folded neatly beside me, and my shift had ended over an hour ago, but I hadn't gone home yet. Something told me to wait. Or maybe I was just stalling because home didn't feel like home anymore. The bell above the door jingled, and when I glanced up, my breath caught in my throat. Ethan. He looked soaked, his dark hair flattened against his forehead, his shoulders hunched like he'd been carrying the weight of the world. He hadn't changed much since high school, still lean, still tall, still carrying that same quiet intensity in his eyes. But there was something different, something fragile. He saw me almost instantly, and when our eyes met, he hesitated before walking toward me. I hadn't seen him in 7 years. "Cora," he said softly, his voice rough with something that might have been emotion or maybe just the cold. "Ethan," I replied, forcing a small smile. "Didn't expect to see you here." He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "Didn't expect to be here. Just driving through town. Thought I'd stop for coffee. And maybe, I don't know, see someone familiar." That someone was me. I knew it. I felt it in the way his eyes didn't leave mine. "You're soaked," I said, gesturing to the water dripping from his jacket. "Come sit." He sat across from me, his hands shaking slightly as he reached for the warm cup I slid across the table. I studied his face more closely. There was a sadness there, something deep and unspoken, and it pulled at something inside me. We talked for a while, cautiously at first, like we were feeling around the jagged edges of our shared past. He told me he'd left Los Angeles 3 weeks ago. Said things had fallen apart. A breakup, a job loss, something about losing himself somewhere between ambition and exhaustion. I told him about the coffee shop, about my mother's health scare last year, and about the boyfriend who left the moment things got hard. There was a silence between us then, not awkward, just full. Heavy with what we weren't saying. "Do you ever think about that night?" he asked suddenly, eyes locked on mine. I felt my heart jump. "Which night?" He gave me a look, the kind that didn't need an answer. "Yes." I thought about it often. That one night in senior year when everything felt raw and real and terrifying. We were kids back then, wrapped in confusion and chemistry, and we never talked about it again. Until now. "I think about it too much," I admitted. Ethan let out a shaky breath, the kind people exhale when they've been holding it in for far too long. "I shouldn't be here." "But you are," I whispered. He looked down at his trembling hands, then out the window. The rain was falling harder now. "Do you want a ride home?" he asked, voice low. I hesitated. My car was in the shop, and I had been planning to Uber, but now the question held more than just an offer. It held a choice. A door. And I opened it. Yes. We didn't speak much on the way to my apartment. The heater in his car was broken, and the air inside felt cool despite the summer storm outside. I stared out the window while he drove, stealing glances at him from time to time. His jaw was tight, like he was trying to stay composed, but I noticed the tremor in his fingers as they gripped the steering wheel. When we reached my building, he parked and turned off the engine, but made no move to get out. I sat there beside him, the rain drumming steadily on the roof of the car, a cocoon of sound around us. "I don't want to go back," he said after a long silence. I looked at him. His voice had cracked just slightly. "Back where?" "Back to whatever life I thought I was building. I don't know who I am anymore, Cora." My heart twisted. I had felt that same way not so long ago. Like the world had spun too fast, and I'd fallen off the edge. "Then stay here tonight," I said. His eyes met mine, and I could see he wasn't sure if I meant here, as in the car, or here, as in my life. Maybe even he didn't know. But I knew I meant both. "You sure?" he asked. I nodded. We climbed out of the car and hurried inside, soaked all over again despite the umbrella I tried to shield us with. Upstairs, I handed him a towel and an old hoodie of mine. He disappeared into the bathroom, and when he came back, he looked softer. Not just because of the hoodie or the fact that his hair was no longer plastered to his face, but because something in him had loosened. We sat on the couch. He didn't say much, just stared ahead like he was listening to something only he could hear. Eventually, I reached over and placed my hand over his. It was still trembling. "Ethan," I said quietly, "whatever's happening inside you, you don't have to go through it alone." He turned to me slowly, and there was that same look from years ago. That stormy vulnerability that had both scared and drawn me in. He didn't kiss me. He didn't even move. He just looked at me like I was the only solid thing in a world that kept shifting beneath his feet. "I'm scared," he said. I nodded. "Me too." We stayed like that for a long time, hand in hand, breaths sinking like they used to when we were 17 and didn't know how to name what we were feeling. Eventually, I told him he could stay in the guest room. He didn't argue. Just followed me down the hallway like someone who didn't trust their own legs anymore. I gave him a blanket, some water, and as I turned to leave, he caught my hand. "Will you stay?" he asked. I paused. I didn't ask what he meant. I just saw the way his shoulders shook slightly, the way his voice faltered. I nodded again. "Okay." We lay side by side in the small bed, not touching, not talking, just existing in the same space, two broken pieces trying to remember how they used to fit. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I felt his hand slide into mine again. And I held it, not to fix him, not to save him, but just to let him know he wasn't alone. Morning came slowly, golden sunlight filtering through the curtains, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't dread waking up. He was still asleep, his breathing soft and even. I watched him for a moment, remembering the boy he used to be and the man he was becoming. Something inside me shifted. I didn't know what this was or where it would go, but I knew that I had let him into my home, my space, my life. And maybe, just maybe, that's where we both needed to be. By the time he woke up, there was coffee waiting in the kitchen and a quiet kind of hope lingering in the air between us. He looked at me with something that resembled gratitude and sorrow all at once. "Thanks for letting me stay," he said. I smiled. "Thanks for coming back." Neither of us said the word future, but we didn't need to. The way he didn't rush to leave, the way I didn't avoid his gaze, the way we both stood there in the small kitchen like it meant something, that said enough. Sometimes, the most meaningful things aren't said in grand declarations or dramatic gestures. Sometimes, it's in the way someone trembles but chooses to stay, in the way someone else lets them in despite the fear. And in the quiet of that morning, in that fragile beginning, we chose each other again. Maybe for a day, maybe for a lifetime, but for now it was enough.